Hello and welcome back. My name is Sean and today we're going to be getting into Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you expect another irreverent intro that has nothing to do with the book itself? Well, for Malazan! So this was a weird book for me to review. I don't think I would have finished it if I did not have to review it. However, the consensus from what I've seen other reviewers and from my friends who love the series is that the first book is rough and that you really don't experience what Malazan is until you read the whole series twice. Now, that being said, I do think it was very well done. The prose, the writing, the world building, all it was excellent. But Erikson just says, we're not going to tell, we're just going to show. And I built up this really wild, crazy, gigantic world where so many things are happening and so many characters are going off doing their own separate things and not explain any of it. And so you're just thrown into this book with no explanation. You have no really concept of what's happening. There's no explanation of how the magic works, how the politics works. You're just watching it happen as if you stepped through a portal into the crazy world that is Malazan. And one very interesting thing was, and I guess this is a common sentiment among people who read the book, is you go like, hey, that was good. I have no idea what happened. And I can attest to that because as I went through this book with no context of any of the other series, I would have to go and look up summaries and what are other people breaking down per chapter. And even with those breakdowns and rereading the exact things that happened, I'd be like, yeah, that happened, but I have nothing actually to attach this contextually to. I think I will eventually finish this series, so my thoughts on this might change, but as it stands by itself, it was a rough read for me. The last 100 pages of it, I actually did finally get into it and had enough context to at least enjoy what was happening because they had built everything up to such a point where you had seen enough of the characters and seen enough to have a general idea of who was who and how things worked that when they were doing the big finale, last 100 pages, sprint to the finish, I was like, okay, I like this. I finally got into it, but oh my god, getting through those first 400 pages, I had to stop actually reading the book, get it on Audible, so that way, when I was driving or doing other things, that I could just kind of have it on there. So I couldn't physically put the book down. But this isn't to criticize Steven Erikson's writing or the book itself. It was, without that lack of exposition and everything, I just didn't feel like I had a lot of buy-in to want to finish the series. And the prose was good, the world building was excellent, and there's nothing particularly wrong with it. But it just really wasn't for me. But for the bad, I think the main issue I have with this book was the lack of exposition. The closest thing I can think of to relate what it was like going through this book is sort of how the lore of FromSoft games go, like Dark Souls. You're going around, you get a little tatters of context here and there, and it's not until you go completely through the game and play the game a bunch of times that you have enough of pieces put together that you actually understand what's happening. For Dark Souls, for me, that works because while you were going through gathering those things, you're going through an inherently fun, if not frustrating experience, which is a very well-made video game with excellent mechanics that is rewarding in its difficulty and skill through. With this book, it felt more like I was trying to get through a homework assignment and slogging through. I work in computer science, so the closest assimilation to that feeling I can sort of say is when I first started learning about data structures and that kind of headache that you get when you're learning about how a stack or a queue works and you're trying to code it out in C. And while you're going through it, it's just miserable, but once you actually get invested into it, you're like, oh, this is pretty cool, it's interesting, I'm glad I pushed through and learned it. And I have a general feeling that's going to be what reading Malazan is just going to be like for me. I'm not going to give up on the series, but when you're thrown in with so little context and you're just slowly piecing things together and nothing's actually spelled out right, I guess you do get some kind of grim satisfaction, or you get that Dark Souls-like satisfaction of having overcome a beast of a thing. Because I found in the last 100 pages, once I got enough things to kind of understand, it actually started going together, and I thought it was very well done. And I'm sure as you go through the series, now that you have more context of what's happening, even though you're thrown into a new, different spot, different characters, whatever, you understand a lot more, so you're not constantly trying to figure things out from day one. Because this is very much you hit the ground running and nothing's explained to you. I did think there are books like Hyperion that do it better, where they focus in on certain points where things are isolated enough where you can figure things out alone without that context. But those first 400 pages, you have nothing to hook you in, nothing to really understand what's happening. You just have these characters that through just sheer exposure and interaction to, you slowly figure it out. And I've heard this book is best kind of viewed as a mystery. So I think that's a good way to look at it if you do pick up this book, is you're not going to have any of the details. And part of the joy of it is that if you slog through it long enough and actively push through, then you're going to experience a really crazy world that's a lot of effort has obviously gone into. Now, for me, I can't really say anything negative about the prose. There are, I guess, some controversial things where people would criticize Steven Erikson's characterization, and I'll put a link into his response about that. He wrote this long post kind of defending his decisions, and it kind of opened up a few interesting debates. Daniel Green covered it on his channel. But I actually didn't have any issue with how he wrote his characters. I mean, you're just kind of thrown in, and after you experience enough of them, they're distinct and very well done, and they're very interesting, and there's a lot of coolness that's put into it. Because there's no ramp up, there's just a very, very steep learning curve, I wouldn't say that this was an enjoyable read. I will know more as I finish the series, but from what people I've heard that aren't just diehard Malazan fans, but still enjoyed the series and recommended it, is that this is the hardest book to get through, and after you get through here, it really opens up. Now, for the good, this is one of the best examples of epic fantasy I've seen in a while. I mean, the series is very long, but what he has done with his world building and the care that's been put into it is really crazy and really wonderful. The magic system's very unique. You have very unique characters, different races, and you can tell even with that first book that the world that you're getting thrown into is massive and a lot of things are happening. There are multiple hints throughout the book about, how you can ascend to godhood and how all these complex machinations are happening between the people, the politics, to these high mages, to the gods themselves. And these games, date back hundreds of thousands of years and all play a part in what is happening right now. The prose I thought was very well done. He has a very cool style, I would say. So when he is describing some of these battles and some of the epicness that does come through even without context, it is still very well done. So between the care that has been put in for the world building, the prose, and the absolutely craziness of the scope that he's putting out there, I mean, I have the benefit of knowing that for this book series, those who can get through it, that it is widely held in great regard just for what he actually pulls it off. So, not necessarily enjoying this book, I can very much appreciate the work and stuff that's gone into it. I will have to read the rest of the series before I can actually recommend this or not. But I guess if you're looking for a challenge and don't like having your hand held, or really just played Dark Souls or those type of games and enjoyed that process of slowly figuring things out, piece by piece, and having the satisfaction of pushing through past discomfort to find, the bigger things, it's a very rewarding thing. I don't know if I'm going to read the series twice, but who knows, maybe it'll win me over. So I mentioned Erikson kind of responding to his critics after a long period of time. He had said that he waited 15 years to actually post it. I'll actually link that in the description below so you can check it out for yourself. But one of his main responses to, his criticisms and stuff is that, he was trained to show, not tell rigorously. And I think Malazan falls more as a literary piece than it does as a genre work. But he just took that seriously and applied it to this giant world. And I think that's good and well done. And when you get through it and actually put everything together, you feel like you have that reward of overcoming something difficult. And I think that will make it all the more rewarding for actually completing. Whenever I see this type of writing or exposure in other types of work and stuff. Generally, it's grounded in familiar circumstances. So this to me felt a little bit like reading Heart of Darkness, but you have the context of knowing of the Congo, of Earth, of the rules, some of the pieces and stuff that are moving together. If you're in the military, have heard of military, like you have that familiar context. With this one, you don't have that, so you're thrown in and you're just slowly piecing together, and you're on the run figuring it out. And for some people, they may love that. For me, it was not very enjoyable, but it eventually became satisfying, if that makes sense. I will eventually get to the next few books in the series, but just based on how long it took me to get through this book and the lack of enjoyability I had getting through it until the very end, I will probably hold off for a little bit until I can dedicate time to, give this series its due. I'm not going to get too much into the in-depth characterizations or what happened with this book. I found this one booktuber named Iskar Jarak who does a very good breakdown of the Malazan series as a whole. He dives into the lore. He breaks it down chapter by chapter of what looks like most of the books. I'm not going to be the Malazan channel, but it looks like he has already taken that upon himself to do. So if you do pick this book up, which I think if you've read fantasy for a while and enjoy it and are looking for something challenging, you should. I would say do it in tandem. As you get through a chapter, check out some of his breakdowns and sort of follow along, because so much happens that for me, I had to do recaps. So many things happened that you had to keep straight, so many different plot lines interweaving, so many characters doing whatever. It's the sheer amount that comes through in the story is overwhelming. So for me, I would give it a 6 out of 10. The core reason of why I like to read is because I enjoy it. I like the escapism. I like getting lost in like a brand new world. I like having new ideas exposed to me through these type of like literary memes. To me, it's supposed to be an enjoyable process. I want to be hooked in and swept off into a new world. When I get to the point of a book series where I'm having to basically do homework to keep track of everything that's happening, it's like, yeah, that's challenging and rewarding, and you're having to struggle, which I am a huge advocate for, but I have plenty of that in other aspects of my life, just for how I treat the hobby and what actually attracts me into the book. So far, it's not my thing. But, just because it is such a monument to epic fantasy, and it has just really people who like it, love it, and as I understand it gets stronger as it goes on, I will eventually finish it. I will have to mentally prepare myself to have a notepad ready and start making crazy diagrams, linking everything to everything, so I can actually understand what's happening and give it its due justice. But if you're looking for an adventure and something challenging, check it out. It was very well done, just not my personal cup of tea. If I liked it, I probably would give it like a 8 out of 10, just knowing that it gets stronger. But hey, thanks for stopping by and watching. I appreciate the support, and if there's anything that you want to see covered or done, please leave a comment down below. And if you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. New sketches coming, and I'm going to continue hitting out reviews weekly. So if there's anything specifically you want to check out, then let me know. If not, thanks, and y'all have a good day.